Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Field. I'm Liv Moose, and in just a bit, we're joined by Nate Jackson, and this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Woo! We are back for another episode of Off Field. I was in New Orleans most of the week, so you guys haven't seen me in the studio for a while. It feels very good to be back. And obviously, there's a lot of exciting things to talk about today because as AFC West Broncos fans, couldn't have pictured a better Super Bowl, Nate, in my humble opinion, honestly.
And before we dig into the reality of the show, we got to tell people that the person running this show is a huge Chiefs fan, Andy, and she put together these awesome graphics for the show.
She did.
And she's been very humble.
And she's a
trooper. And so she's here at work today, putting her best foot forward.
Yes.
Despite the heartbreak that all Chiefs fans felt yesterday and all the elation that all the people wanting the Chiefs to lose felt because
yes, and let's be real. If things went a different way, Andy would have been loud today. I'm sure she would have walked in.
No,
and
but
been
she's
like,
not like that though. She would have been pretty humble.
But I think there maybe would have been some like underlying she might have had a more pivot or step. I mean, for obvious reasons. But I'm not here to brag and be obnoxious because I really didn't technically have a dog in this fight. But it felt good to see somebody else win.
Yeah, it did.
It's not a bad feeling ever.
A little bit of like a little ding dong, the witch is dead feeling,
Which is dead.
From the Wizard of Oz there.
Agreed.
It felt as if the Chiefs were unstoppable.
For a minute
15 into the one of those losses was against the Broncos when they rested everyone. So conceivably they could have won 16 games and it felt they could have.
We're going to get into that in a little bit. We're just going to get into the year that the Chiefs had compared to the performance in the Super Bowl and how I think they got there and how I think maybe they weren't done any favors.
The writing was on the wall.
Maybe
the refs covered for some of their shortcomings, and that was exposed after the narrative became too big to control.
Talk about all of that, and it's going to be great. And we actually, in addition to these graphics, how the show's going to lay out moving forward is like a football game. We're going to have first quarter, second quarter, halftime, third quarter, fourth quarter, and a 2-minute warning. So it's going to be easy to follow along. That being said, I think we get right into the first quarter here.
Boom.
And to me, that's kind of the X factor conversations of the Super Bowl and the way it transpired and what we saw between these two teams, two very talented teams. But I want to talk about what I think you'll probably agree with me on because I did stalk your Twitter a little bit in the wee hours of the night as I was figuring out what we were going to discuss today. First quarter.
Yeah.
Defense wins championships, Nate. And a lot of people talking ahead of this matchup, they're not going to have an answer for Andy Reid. They're not going to have an answer for Spags. It's not in the cards for the Eagles. Let's talk about Vic Fangio, shall we? Because defense wins championships. What did you think of the Eagles defense and their ability to make Patrick Mahomes look like Peter Mahomes? Little Peter.
He had a little Peter yesterday. He didn't.
Yeah.
My tweet was Vic Fangio, Super Bowl MVP, right? And I'm probably not the only one who tweeted that because they put on a virtuoso, masterful performance against a Chiefs team that was being talked about as perhaps the greatest team of all time.
Yep.
If they had won that game, that's what people would have said about the Chiefs. Greatest team of all time because no one's ever three-peated. And in fact, no one's ever won 2 Super Bowls and then gone to the 3rd Super Bowl. So they already, made history there.
Yeah.
But to get dismantled like that, Vic Fangio was here for a while. You remember Vic was the head coach here for 3 years and, came with an incredible defensive pedigree, had never been a head coach, finally got that opportunity and wasn't able to do it. But what he was able to do is play Patrick Mahomes 6 times during that period. And he figured out. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if we remember those games, those Chiefs-Broncos games when Fangio was the head coach. The offense was really bad, but the defense of the Broncos played pretty well every time. They kept them under control, under 30 points, sometimes under 20 points. And I think Vic Fangio knows the formula on how to beat Pat Mahomes. And I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who did it in the Super Bowl with Brady, did it in a similar way as well. They rushed 4. They didn't blitz. I don't think they blitzed at all in that game yesterday. They didn't have to.
Yep.
They were able to get after him with 4 guys. And what happens when you're able to do that is you have 7 dudes in coverage, and it's a zone, and they're really good at disguising the zones. And then he just wasn't able to see any open receivers. And so when you're getting pressured that quickly, like he was, and then you roll out and nobody's open, it caused some pretty poor decisions by Patrick Mahomes, and it made him look pretty pedestrian out there.
Yeah.
And the guy calling the game, Tom Brady, he could barely contain his enjoyment in watching Patrick Mahomes fail, in my opinion, to kind of surpass anything that he'd ever done. But kudos to Vic Fangio and that entire defense. This was the worst defense in the league last year.
Yeah.
From worst to best.
Yeah.
And
the glow up was real.
Yeah, it was. And fantastic performance. And that's going to, people remember that forever.
Well, and I want to also speak on the fact that I think going into this matchup, there was also a lot of credit. I think we actually spoke more highly of the Chiefs defense that we saw all season than we did Philly's defense. I remember talking with you about ahead of the Super Bowl about the fact that it just felt odd, the tone in which everybody, I'm not even just saying it's like media members or fans or whatever, we didn't really hype this Eagles team up very much throughout the season. We weren't talking about the Eagles like they were playing at a severely high level and could be really, really great all season long and or win a Super Bowl. And then you see them show up, their defense looked amazing, but we spent more time probably ahead of the Super Bowl talking about the Chiefs defense.
Oh, yeah.
What went wrong with their defense yesterday? Because it seemed like Philly, they were scoring a lot of points. They looked pretty comfortable out there. And I felt like I expected more out of the Chiefs defense yesterday than what we saw.
I did as well. And I think, something we talked about, they got to stop Saquon. Well, they kind of did.
They did. They absolutely
didn't stop anyone else.
Right.
And that's the danger when you focus on stopping one person. The Broncos, which game was that? Oh, yeah. The Bills. We got to stop Josh Allen. We got to stop Josh Allen. Well, you did, sort of. You didn't stop James Cook.
Right. Don't forget about James.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good players on the field.
Yeah.
And when you focus on stopping one guy, you open up a can of whoop ass on yourself from the other guys, whatever.
Sort of, kind of. We're going to go with it.
You open yourself up to getting gashed by the other guys. A.J. Brown.
I had him in a parlay
Devontae,
for that exact reason.
Smith. Dotson on that first. He almost scored a touchdown. Did anyone have
I had somebody in my home. I hosted a little. It was very minor. And of course, a lot of people were like, are you insane? You just got back from New Orleans. I was exhausted, but I can't ever do anything small. So I was like, let's just have a couple. We'll just make some snacks. It ended up being like a good amount of people there. But one of the people there had Dotson to score first.
Oh my gosh.
Celebrated, running through the house screaming, only to then find out
his knee was down.
Really, really bad. But that's exactly why I took AJ Brown. I'm going to toot my horn for 2 seconds here. I had a very successful betting day.
Did you?
I had a plus 1,600 ticket that I placed in August for the Eagles to win it all.
Congrats.
Cashed me out $425. So that hit.
Tote bag.
I also, since my co-host never managed to get around to putting that in their cart, I will go ahead and do that now. No worries. Then I had a parlay, which was Eagles money line, a Hurts tush push anytime touchdown.
Oh, that was on the.
No, it's just Hurts anytime, and I just knew that that's how he's going to get it. Yeah. And then AJ Brown anytime, and a lot of people were messaging me saying, "Where's Saquon? Where's Saquon?" And I sat in my home with the people there, and I said, "I don't know if he's going to score in this game because if you're the Chiefs defense, if you're smart." That's your priority. You can't let Saquon get hot. And there were a couple of moments in that game where I thought, ooh, he's kind of looking like he might be heating up here, and that's going to be a huge problem. At that point, I think it was 27-0. So I'm like, it just felt like the Chiefs were completely out of gas at that point. More like they were their morale gone at that point. So wasn't entirely worried about them coming back in that game, and then I also sprinkled on 2 other anytime touchdown scores, Devontae Smith being one of them. So cashed that. The other one that didn't hit was Dallas Goedert. I put some money on him. I thought he was going to get in the end zone. Thought he was going to have a moment, but he didn't. But otherwise, I had a very great betting day.
Paid for your trip to New Orleans. Well, actually, you were there on business.
I was there on business. Yeah. I was. Yeah.
Well, you used that business acumen to win in that Super Bowl. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Do you help your friends out when they come over to like sprinkle on some stuff? I mean, are you the gambling expert amongst your friends?
I mean, occasionally they will ask for sure. I don't like to, view myself as a gambling expert because I don't know if there is even such a thing. Everybody loses, and I hate being the person that's like, take this bet, I love it, and then it loses. I don't like to be responsible for people's money like that, but I did post my bet slip publicly and told people what I was on. So if they wanted to tail, I had a couple people respond and say, I tailed this. Thanks so much. But yeah, unless people ask, I don't really say, oh, it's a lock. Take AJ Brown. He's going to score.
Well, you mentioned AJ Brown last week as well. We were talking about our X factors or whatever, and you had the same logic. So, Liv, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You figured it out.
I tried.
A lot of people didn't.
I tried to figure it out. Yeah. And the Eagles listen, did I anticipate the Eagles defense, which is our first quarter conversation here? Defense wins championships. Did I expect their defense to look that good? No, because my prediction for the game was it was going to be a little closer.
Yeah.
There would be a few more points on the board by the Chiefs. But that defense felt like it was, as much as AJ Brown had some moments and Jalen Hurts, of course, felt like the defense by the Eagles was the X factor in this
Absolutely dominating. And the offensive line of the Chiefs, not a great game.
Woo!
When you hear
he was
rushing
horizontal quite a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
And off-platform throws, got hit on the side as he threw that one interception. And I'd love to see it. Love to see it. But when you're able to rush 4 and put that kind of pressure on a quarterback, you have 5 offensive linemen, so you have an extra guy, and you're still not able to handle those dudes. So pretty impressive by what the Eagles were able to do. Does it take Patrick Mahomes down a peg? I mean, the question is he the GOAT? Is he on pace for the GOAT? Is he going to win another? Well, he didn't win it. So he still has 3.
Yeah.
And in my mind, he's still not ahead of Joe Montana. Obviously, after that loss, Joe Montana is 4 for 4. Okay, never thrown an interception in a Super Bowl.
Patrick had Patty had 2.
And those 3 touchdowns at the end were Garbo time. And the 250 yards or whatever.
But if you did bet Xavier Worthy 2+, I'm sure you were feeling pretty good because he got in there and he got it done. Do I think it lowers Patrick Mahomes' value? No, because I think that game was more. It represented more how great the Eagles defense was that didn't get enough credit than it did Patrick Mahomes not being good enough to be on that stage. We've seen him on that stage. We know he can win. We know he's great. However, do I think it should maybe slow down the conversations of Patrick Mahomes being ahead of Tom Brady? Absolutely. I think that game, now maybe those conversations will die down just a smidge. Now, that's not to say Patrick Mahomes won't be back and won't keep winning. There's a chance.
You think they'll be back?
We also, I think, are entering a new era of football where it's somebody else's turn. Somebody else's turn. And that's a good feeling, I think, for everybody but Chiefs Kingdom, probably.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think that game to me did not change how I feel about Patrick's talent. It didn't.
Well, it did for me.
Did it?
Yeah, because
we'll dive into that a little bit.
Well, no, I just think that Patrick Mahomes, his greatness is inflated by the momentum of the media conversation and the prisoners of the moment. Yes, they are an awesome team, but I will continue to say this about Patrick Mahomes' arrival in Kansas City. He showed up to a good team already. He's an awesome quarterback.
Great coach there. Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff.
Alex Smith already had them winning 10 games a year and go to the playoffs every year. Okay. He didn't take over a bad team. He took over a very good team, and he's made it even better. He's really, really awesome. Is he the best of all time? I don't think so, and I think it's too early to tell any of that. But Patrick Mahomes, we'll see how he responds to this, and this entire team, because they've never been embarrassed like this. It
was for a minute there, Nate. I was like,
"This is like Mike Tyson showing up and losing to Buster Douglas." You know what I mean? In a way, I wouldn't call the Eagles Buster Douglas, but everyone expected a different.
The expectation is what made it so embarrassing. Right.
The 3P, these guys can't lose.
The way we were discussing the Chiefs and, their I don't know, hierarchy status, if you will.
So I don't know if you saw good old Sean Payton was doing the rounds, the media round. Did you see him out there?
I actually did not see him in person at all. And normally I do.
He did a few media opportunities. He did this barstool thing where he was on stage with Portnoy and all these people and but he said he could, how Sean Payton, he'll start saying something, then he won't stop it. And he basically said he wanted the Chiefs to win so that their team would be more distracted with different contract signings and losing players and this.
Wow.
And the fallout of a three-peat. He wanted them to win But then someone like pressed him on. He's like, look, we're not worried about anybody else. Well,
you sound like you might be.
You just said it, Sean.
You sound like you might be, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The conversation about Patrick Mahomes is an interesting one. And of course, if you guys are tuning in, get in the comment sections. Let us know how you feel. Did this change how you feel about Patrick Mahomes and his potential climbing to GOAT status, if you will? But that kind of takes us into second quarter here.
Second quarter.
Blow the whistle. Here it goes. Okay, second quarter. And this second quarter conversation here is officiating. Now you're probably sitting there going, oh, what kind of BS are you going to talk about? The officiating wasn't bad, blah, 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 blah. That's not the angle that I'm going to take on this. My angle is, maybe this is a hot take.
Yep.
Did favorable officiating all season hurt the Chiefs when it mattered the most? Because I will tell you, I talked to a lot of athletes this week in New Orleans. It is not just Broncos fans that feel like the officiating was heavily favorable for the Chiefs all season long. We're talking about a lot of different players, a lot of different teams, a lot of different fans that feel like there were favorable calls that always tend to lean one way, and that way was always the Chiefs this season.
Yeah.
Did that hurt them when they didn't have that 15-yard penalty that got them a little closer to the end zone, when they didn't have that extra opportunity on a fourth down, when they didn't have that roughing the passer and Patrick Mahomes had to get knocked around a few times in the good old game of football, which is what it is.
Supposed to be, yeah.
Hello. You play football. You're going to get knocked around a little bit. Yeah. I mean, he got knocked around a couple times and he stood up like, woo, haven't felt that in a minute. It's like, you should, though. You're a damn football player.
Anyone?
Right.
Anyone?
Hello, I'm here and I'm hurt. Please help me. But he didn't have that in the Super Bowl. So now my question for you is, did the favorable officiating all season long kind of keep them in this perfect little bubble princess treatment? And then when it came to the big dogs, this Eagles defense that said, we don't really care about your princess treatment. We're here to rock your SHIT. How's it feel? Do you think that ended up hurting them in the long run?
I think there's an argument to be made there that the refs in certain games, and I can't say that they're always, every game was decided by the refs, but having those training wheels that can kind of steady you or prevent you from
that
falling.
Bike feels different, huh?
It does. But what we talked about, Liv, all year was if you want to beat the Chiefs, you got to beat them. You got to create some separate. You got to beat them by 2 scores, and they did. And so it was over early, and so there was nothing the refs could do.
I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
The refs were there to throw a flag in the fourth quarter that would save them, and there were no flags that they could throw in the fourth quarter to save them.
Much dirty laundry out there,
or the second or the first. There was nothing that could save them from that whooping.
Woo! And that's actually just it right there. When early in that game, because you do have that, there was that little bit of wiggle room where I felt like second half, there was kind of this consensus in my house of all the people watching that were like, let's not get too excited, because who knows? Do the refs have something up their sleeve? Are they going to throw them a couple little? Because again, Patrick Mahomes is still a great quarterback. They're still well coached. They've still got talent on their team. So you kind of were worried about if the calls start to lean that way, does it give them those training wheels back where they can start biking again?
Yeah.
Woo, they're zooming. I was a little worried, but I felt very comfortable, I would say, knowing that the Eagles right out of the gates got ahead.
Yeah.
Because if they would have kept this game tight, I think it would have ended differently.
Yeah.
And you look at the Chiefs season as a whole, yes, they were winning games, but you kind of start to look at it a little like, when all of those games are decided by
1 score or less.
1 score or less.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I guess there can't be less than 1 score.
Felt like it sometimes.
But they were all, they won
very
17 straight 1-score games. Unprecedented stuff, right? And so the Eagles knew that they were going to have to put a whooping on them, take the refs out of it. That was probably what they were telling each other all week long. That was probably the message from Nick Sirianni was, look, we're not going to leave it close enough to allow the refs to affect it.
Right.
We're going to go in there and dominate it.
Yep.
Dominate this game. And Vic Fangio had a plan to do that. And these guys really responded well to that. Jalen Hurts had a great game.
Woo! We're going to get to that a little bit after our halftime.
Okay, cool.
After our little halftime break.
But I will say with the refs, I pick up what you're putting down in that you're helped in these little moments all year long, or at least in these close games. And then all of a sudden, they're nowhere. Your Whoopi's nowhere to be found. They can't help you here.
If
You're
mommy
in
was
deep
helping
water.
you, if mommy was helping you with your school projects all throughout high school, and then you went to college and
Yeah.
mommy wasn't there to help you tape stuff down and color and put stuff together, you probably got rocked a little bit on that first grade you got back going, woo!
Yeah, they got.
I might have needed to do some of this on my own a little bit. From time to time. I don't know. You watch that when you see a team as good as the Chiefs were all season on paper, winning games, winning the AFC. When you see that, you expect a lot more out of the Super Bowl. But that did, in my opinion, and I'd like to get your thoughts, did that feel like a pretty fair officiated game?
Yeah. I mean, there was that call on AJ Brown right off the bat that Tom Brady disagreed with.
I was a little upset about that one.
I actually don't. I mean, you can't push off. He extended his arm and it was on the guy's face mask. I'm a receiver and I actually think that was a penalty.
Which is fair. I think some of that was also the fact that I needed AJ Brown to score, and I was kind of like, it was early in the game too, so I was like, are we doing this already? That was, I think, more my reaction, less about was the call appropriate or not, because right after that, wasn't there one that could have been, maybe there was some head to head. It was like right after that there was some people getting on Twitter that were like, oh, that was maybe a missed call. So then I kind of cooled myself down and was like,
but then there was like a one that didn't go the Chiefs' way with that late hit and like in the secondary and stuff like that. So I thought it was officiated well. I thought there was no clear bias there. I thought it kind of put to bed all those rumors.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where when it is officiated evenly, look what happens.
That's exactly my point. This is what I would think most people would argue in all of the Chiefs games played this season. This by far felt like the fairest officiated game, and look at what we saw.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to not kind of draw that parallel and go, you were dominant all season. You were doing what you needed to do. You were winning games. And then all of a sudden, when we see some fair officiating, you fall apart.
Yeah.
You don't look like the same team at all. And so that's where I think it just makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Did the NFL do them a disservice in giving them princess treatment all season long?
Perhaps. I mean,
it's just something to ponder.
Something to ponder.
I'm pondering it.
The Chiefs' offense hasn't been awesome this year, but Patrick Mahomes, not a Pro Bowler, not an All-Pro. Not even.
It's true.
I don't know. So it's the Chiefs' defense that was able to keep them in a lot of games.
It's true.
And they did not do that yesterday.
And the coaching, I think, too, was.
But the games, like, they only scored over 30 points one time this whole year. So they weren't like scoring a ton of points. It was their defense that kept them in it until late.
It's true.
And then they were able to pull a rabbit out of the hat. And I think their defense just couldn't handle the Eagles.
That's kind of
yesterday.
What they looked unprepared a little bit.
Yeah, and which is crazy because Andy Reid's like the master of preparation, right? And he's the guy, if he has an extra week to prepare, good luck to you, because Andy Reid is going to have a game plan to take advantage of it. And they didn't have anything for Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio was the MVP of that game.
I agree, 100%. All right, we're reaching halftime now. Boop, 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 boop. Halftime. And we're going to talk a little bit about the halftime performance, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I have seen, you guys are not going to like what I have to say. And that's just the facts. Well, some of you actually, I think, will appreciate it. And some of you are probably... That was a halftime performance that you either loved it or you hated it.
There was a lot of both, yeah.
And it was very clear to me. Let me put it this way. When I saw tweets and reactions of people that didn't love it, it didn't surprise me.
Right. Why?
So we're gonna get into that performance.
Let's dive into it.
Number one, yes, this is the longest drawn out diss track on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a diss track that won 2 Grammys. So let's give some credit where it's due. He didn't need to pop off like that, and he did. More than that, though, I will say, and I can speak on the side of it from a performer. I've been a competitive dancer my whole life. I am no longer. Don't ask me to bust a move. I'll hurt myself. I have been a competitive dancer my whole life. So I love and admire and respect staging, costuming, choreography, all of that. And all of it was very well done, in my opinion. But more than that, there were messages that went over all the heads that really needed to listen to it, is how I felt. The people that loved that performance saw the messages very loud and clear. And I think it was done in a very tasteful way. It was done very respectfully. SZA wasn't half naked twerking around.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautifully done, in my opinion, to spread the message. I think a lot of people knew Kendrick Lamar has a very strong feeling about a particular person that was at that game.
Who?
President.
Oh, okay. So
he's very vocal about not liking that. And we're not going to
Okay.
get political on this, but what I'm going to say
Well,
is,
what was the message? It was a political message, you're saying. So if we're talking about the message, we got to talk about the message.
You're right. You're right. There
What
were a
was the
lot of
message?
political messages there. One that I'm going to just bring up right now that I don't think a lot of people noticed. The dancers were in red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
At one point, they made a flag.
Yeah.
That flag had a space right in the middle of it, which in my opinion symbolized a divided nation. Kendrick was standing right in the center of it. There were things that if you weren't paying attention, you didn't understand the value of that performance. I can speak as somebody that watched Serena Williams crip walking. I mean, just looking fantastic. Uncle Sam as a black Uncle Sam. Those are those are messages that were being sent. And so I have a lot of respect for the way in which it was done, because I think a lot of people expected him to get on the mic and say, F who's in charge. You know, he could have done it differently. I felt like it was done very respectfully and tastefully, and it was powerful in my opinion.
You got to toe the line. It's a corporate event. So it's not like your own show where you can just go up there and say whatever you want.
I was a little shocked that they allowed him to do even what he did.
Yeah.
There were some things where I was like, whoa, okay, NFL. I
mean, in some ways they did allow a subversive or counter message, and they knew the president was going to be there. And they allowed, Kendrick to be an artist and say the things he wanted to say, maybe in a more cryptic way. It was a different show in that, other than Not Like Us, there aren't a lot of like pop songs. Like they're not.
Yeah, it's hard to.
I guess what I'm saying, like, for the people who didn't vibe with it, you kind of got to know Kendrick and know his music to vibe with it. When you're hearing it for the first time and it's a mashup like that, like 10 songs condensed into 12 minutes. It kind of is it has a little bit of vertigo to it. Like, you can't really vibe with one song. It's on to the next. Like, and you're trying to listen. He talks fast.
My granddad was sitting in the living room. He's like, I like it, but I can't understand a word he's saying. I'm like, yeah. I mean,
he's not a mumble rapper either. He's a very clear rapper. But it was
hard. Yeah.
But it's like, he's not a pop rapper where it's just like formulaic verse that's easy to follow with a nice chorus and a verse and he does it a little differently. And so I think like that type of music takes, for people who aren't used to listening to it, on first listen, they're not going to be like, this is the dopest shit I ever heard.
Right.
It's going to take them a little bit of time, and even with the symbolism as well, because there's a lot going on. And so, a lot of this, the breakdown of the symbolism of it comes after the fact. When you watch it, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. And then you start compiling it. And so I think, the black and white thing certainly is an issue for some white viewers who didn't see any black or any white people on the stage, or vice versa. If it were the opposite, there's always some people who are going to be upset by that online. But I think the artistry, the creativity, it was unique.
It was.
He went after his rival without really like getting too.
He could have been worse for sure. Yeah.
Too into it. But you're not going to please everyone with a halftime show.
And we've seen it. We've seen very polarizing opinions on halftime performances. I wasn't super fun, and I love Rihanna. I didn't love her halftime performance. I really was not a fan of it at all. So I understand that everyone's entitled to their opinion. I guess what I am going to say is, just because you don't prefer his music, don't call the entire performance trash.
Well, who was doing that?
Because it
Twitter people?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, people that I could care less what they think, but I just.
Well, what about our listeners? What about our listeners, viewers in the comments? Did you like the halftime show? Yes, no. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it?
To me, that's actually genuinely that's one of the tops for me right now.
Ever.
Yes.
Nice.
Truly. And again, it hit a different nerve for me. Than it did for other people, right?
He's an artist of your generation.
He is.
Which you don't always get at a Super Bowl halftime show. It's usually an older artist who's like, whatever, has a Rolodex of hits that puts him in that position. Kendrick's able to do it at a pretty, I don't know, what is he, mid-30s probably, Kendrick. But he's not like he's not a pop musician.
And I think the messages and the symbolism was something that I'm very, very quiet about some of the things that I get I'm a very anxious person, like severely. The anxiety that I have can be pretty debilitating. I had a couple moments in New Orleans where I was like, I really truly need to fly home. I cannot handle it.
Well, with too many people?
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot of stuff. With me, my anxiety, it's a daily thing, but there's some days where I just wake up and I'm like, I can't move, I can't walk, I can't talk. I'm so anxious. And of course, with my job, you gotta put makeup on anyway and just figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. But I would say that the symbolism and the meaning and the messages that were in that halftime performance hit a nerve emotionally for me on things that I just haven't really expressed publicly, like some of the things that have caused, made me stressed or anxious or whatever. And I just felt like he did a really great job at showcasing some of the things that a lot of people battle every day and are stressed about every day. And I don't know. I thought it was beautifully done. I thought it was very artistic. It was, listen, there was some culture in there that is unfamiliar to a lot of people. And it's funny. My granddad said the same thing. I'm only seeing, where's the diversity on the stage? And he's older guy, white man, God love him. But that was one of his first questions, and he's harmless, but he was curious. He's like, I'm not seeing much. There's one group of people up there, and I'm not seeing people like me up there. And I just said, granddad, it's Kendrick. And I think if you know Kendrick, you expected that out of his performance. Yeah. So the same way that if it was a country music artist, I'm not sure how diverse it would look. Yeah. I mean, because I know that's not that's not the crowd. That's not the people that gravitate towards that type of music. So I don't know. I thought it was beautifully done. I thought it was very artistic. But I do feel like there's very polar opposite sides here.
Yeah, and the political angle is funny because it used to be that all rock stars, musicians, artists said fight the power and fuck the establishment, no matter what party you're in.
Yeah.
But now it's like you can't make fun of a Republican president. Every Republican. It used to be like every artist was like, screw, fight the power. Fuck the man. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if he's a Democrat or Republican.
Right.
You're supposed to fight the power, and I think that we've lost some of that in this political polarized. Rock music and rap music used to be about everyone over there wearing a suit, not which side of the aisle you sat on. The fact that you were over there and we're over here, and we're fighting for something different. So I think we got to get back to respecting artists who say fight the power, without putting them on a camp. Politically, because they're not political. They're not trying to be a part of a party.
Right.
They're trying to be on the other side of that fence altogether.
And I guess that's the last thing I'll say on it when it comes to the political messages that were very obviously sprinkled throughout the performance. It's just interesting to see people I know for a fact that were very, very, very excited and happy about the Nick Bosa hat incident, but then not so happy about some political messages in a halftime performance.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just we live in a world where when we don't agree with the message that's being sent, we don't want the message. And that's fine.
These things don't help either.
They don't help.
They don't help. This is not about, you don't have discussions with these. You just tweet at each other.
You just argue.
And you just do it from your, like, while you're taking a poop. That's not an argument. That's not a conversation.
Is that where your Twitter fingers start flying?
A lot of people, if you can
while you're upon your porcelain throne.
If you can change the world with your thumbs from your shitter, this is not a good technology. We need to figure out.
Fangio deserves Super Bowl MVP.
That's right.
And he's just.
No, I wasn't pooping at the time.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, that happened this morning, but it was But there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of food. Did you eat a lot?
Did
Super Bowl?
I made a lot of really great food, actually.
Okay, cool.
I was like in my hostess era,
nice,
and I'm really loving being in my hostess era right now.
Oh.
I enjoy having my favorite people around me, and my parents fed me and made sure I was taken care of all my life. So now I get to do that with them. And
that's awesome.
I love it. So I had my grandparents over, my dad came by, I had my mom and my sister that stopped by after they were done with the dance competition. Loved it. I actually, a little bit of a funny story here, and then we'll move on to our third quarter conversation. We had a guy who stopped by, but he was in town because he was running a camp for young soccer players. Well, when he shows up, I'm like, hey, how are you? Welcome. in walk these like 3-4 teenagers, and they're all from Kansas City. And I was like, ooh. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not quiet. I do usually curse at my television screen during football games, and you're also in a Denver Bronco home.
Yeah.
So we're not fans of your team.
So get out.
Well, I just said, here's your warning. The more high noons I start sipping, I can't guarantee that I'm going to be peaceful and polite with you here. So just
how many
know,
high noons did you end up?
only 2. They really hurt my stomach.
Okay, but real bubbly.
Yeah, a little too
bloaty,
much. Like
bloated.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to shut it down. I also made a 7-layer bean dip. So I was like,
nice.
too many of the high noons plus the bean dip, we might be in trouble. So I was I was pacing myself all night long. And also when you're in the hostess era, you're kind of more worried about everybody else. So I wasn't really like sitting down and enjoying the food. I was just making sure everybody else was taken care of. But nonetheless, halftime performance, I loved it. I feel like you're kind of in the middle.
I liked it. I'm not a huge Kendrick fan, and so I didn't know all these songs.
That's
but
fair.
I thought it was
very well
lyrically incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't miss a beat. Clearly, he wasn't lip singing.
He was in it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Did you think SZA
dancers
was?
There's
some controversy that they said like her mic wasn't even on.
They probably had a backing track and then hers as well. They kind of layer those together.
Okay. A lot of people, I didn't notice it during the performance, but of course went to Twitter afterwards and everyone's like, she is not singing at all. I'm like, what? I was like ready to like gas her up. She looked beautiful.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Let's get into the third quarter, shall we?
Yes.
Oh, third quarter. All about third quarter starts. Here we go. Third quarter is going to be all about Jalen Hurts. Let's talk Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
A quarterback that I feel does face scrutiny.
Yeah.
A little bit more than the Lamars, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows. Jalen Hurts was a quarterback we didn't really talk a ton about this season because I don't know if people understood, when you've got a Saquon Barkley, the game for the quarterback changes a little bit, right? So he didn't have to be that guy. He didn't have to be a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen in order for this team to be successful and make it here. But then he shows up on the biggest stage, calm, cool, collected, full of swag.
Yep.
And does what he does. Super Bowl MVP, plays an outstanding game. I think he had the most rushing yards for the Eagles in that game. 1 rushing touchdown, couple passing touchdowns in there. He just played at a very high level, and he did so with the most cool, calm swagger.
Yeah.
I really appreciated hearing him talk with Erin Andrews, and she said, how differently are you going to feel about yourself if you win a Super Bowl? And he said, not at all. He knows the work that he puts in. He knows what he's capable of. Do you feel like the Jalen Hurts scrutiny should start to slow down a little bit after what we saw yesterday?
Oh, yeah. Well, you win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, there you go. That helps, huh?
People shut the F
bleep up. Yeah, it's true.
And he can come back to Philly and know that he silenced a lot of those haters or whatever you want to call them. I think a guy like him who plays the position the way he does is going to continue to face scrutiny from the traditional sort of legacy quarterback media who wants to see it a certain way.
Yeah.
He's not a traditional kind of pocket quarterback. He takes off and runs. But what was that playoff game where he had 3 touchdowns on the ground and Saquon had 3 touchdowns on the ground? What it does when you have a guy like him, and I know there were injury concerns with him.
Yeah.
Because when you have a guy who takes off, he would get banged up in games. He would come back. He'd be getting up slow. And then is he and I just did a Sean Payton there. I was like, is he? And then I didn't finish the sentence.
Right. Yeah. I just had to kind of, my imagination
and then we go over
took
here
over.
and then we're good. And, so that is a dangerous way to play the position. But if you can toe that line and make it all the way to the end, then you can be the guy, the difference for your team. We talked about it. Saquon. It's Saquon. They got to stop Saquon. Well, they did. And guess what? It wasn't enough. They still got boat raced because Jalen Hurts was on his game.
Right.
Threw 2 touchdowns and ran 1 in. And he's a really calm dude. Like you said, his presence is very calming, I think, just
very
to kind of
swaggy,
isn't
he?
He's just kind of like, what's up? I'm like, he doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. And there's different ways to lead. There's different ways to play that position. But I think somebody who's always calm is helpful for a huddle, to see it. I'm good. We're good. We're going to do this. Now, you have to ramp it up at some point, which clearly he's been able to do to get his guys to identify with what he's doing. But they didn't have a great year offensively, even though they won like 12 straight games or whatever. There was a lot of people questioning what he was doing, his relationship with AJ Brown. And so that was all vindication. And the fact that AJ Brown gets in the end zone and, a lot of these narratives get broken in the very last moment.
And they
by
did,
the truth,
for sure.
by reality. Like narratives aren't real life.
Right.
We talk about all this stuff in this business and this stuff gets built up. The Chiefs being like unstoppable was a narrative, the ref thing is a narrative. How much it's true, who knows? Patrick Mahomes, a little bit. Patrick Mahomes being a GOAT is a narrative, right? And
we either take him and run with him or we let him die.
Right.
And the more you run with them, the more.
Well, but that's what sells.
You give them life.
That's what creates the eyeballs and all that, right? But a lot of them. But the great thing about sports is, in the end, we have a result that shows which narratives were correct and which were not.
Yep.
And the result of this season was the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the world, and they proved it on the largest stage by putting a beat down on this generational team, possibly the greatest team ever in the history of the NFL. Not so fast. That's over now, and now it's the Eagles, and it's a credit to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I would. And now I'm going to ask you, because Jalen Hurts, again, was not a quarterback that I think got a lot of attention in the regular season.
Yeah, not at all.
It wasn't until the playoffs. He wasn't discussed.
Josh Allen. Well, Lamar had a great season.
He did. Yeah. Absolutely. So we didn't talk a ton about Jalen Hurts, but now that it's all said and done, Nate.
Yeah.
Who are the top 5 best quarterbacks in the league right now, in order?
I mean, it's hard to say that. I think Jalen Hurts has to be considered, like, right now.
Right now, after everything you saw, including regular season play and playoff play, your top 5 quarterback list.
Well, I hesitate to put Jalen Hurts at the very top just because, like, no, but you kind of have to, right? Because it's
a hard one. I'm putting you on the spot
right
for sure.
now. Yeah, I'm gonna say Jalen Hurts, and then I'm gonna say Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen.
Okay.
I think that's what I would say. What about yours?
I don't think I'd go Jalen 1.
He just won the biggest game in the world.
He absolutely did.
How's he not the best?
Because I'm looking specifically at quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, to me, outstanding. Can't help that Mark Andrews can't hold a ball. Tough stuff. To his hands.
Lamar had a fumble that game too, though.
Yeah, well, I'd rather blame somebody else. I like Lamar. Just kidding. No, I get it. It's a team sport. You got to all that. But I would probably say Lamar 1, Jalen 2, Josh Allen 3, Joe Burrow 4, Patrick Mahomes 5.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Patrick Mahomes did not look good in that game.
Don't call me a hater, because if you're a stats guy, Patrick Mahomes' stats weren't overly impressive.
No.
And I'm really close to putting Jaden Daniels in his spot.
Ooh.
If you're not careful.
Woo!
Did she go there? She went there.
Already, huh? Jaden. What about Bo?
Come on, Jaden Daniels. He had to have impressed the crap out of you this year.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't just a fluky that game. He made it to the NFC Championship and performed exceptionally well.
Yeah, went into Detroit and whooped up on the Lions.
The Lions were
number
a team
1 seed.
that,
they were supposed to be in the Super Bowl.
Hello? Yeah, it was supposed to be a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl. Let most people tell you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go, I think, I know Jalen Hurts did just win on the biggest stage, and I have nothing but respect for him. But when I look at everything together, I'm going Lamar, Jalen, Josh, Joe, Patrick, and Jaden Daniels on your tail, Patty. So watch out.
Patty. Jalen Hurts, his entire management agent team is all female. He has a female agent. He has everyone were, at least that's the story I heard.
I mean, that is so
smart.
Because guess the smartest creatures on the planet? Women.
Men.
I hope your wife's listening.
Albert Einstein.
And I hope she finds a
Albert
hanger
Einstein,
and bops you over the head when you walk through the door.
Elon Musk.
Oh, and now I know he is just trying to piss me off.
Nah, Elon's such a dork.
You know what I was thinking the other day? Like, dork is such a like non-offensive, but like if someone called me a dork, I'd be like, ouch.
Yeah.
You know, another one, pipsqueak.
Pipsqueak's pretty bad.
Like,
but the dorks are running our world, which is not good. It's like Revenge of the Nerds. Have you seen Revenge of the Nerds, the movie?
No, but is that what we're living in right now?
We are
the
on
dorks
the grandest,
are taking over?
on the grandest scale. Revenge of the Nerds used to be like enough, like it used to be enough to get a good job, get a beautiful wife, have a successful family. That used to be the Revenge of the Nerds on the losers in high school. You shoved them into lockers, but never amounted to nothing. Now the Revenge of the Nerds is they got to take over the world to feel like they got over on the bullies who got laid in high school when they didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
which is
like the Bezos, the Elon Musk, the Mark. Those are our culture setters and they're the biggest dorks in our society. How are they controlling the world? They're not. Anyway,
it's a dork takeover.
It's a dork takeover. we gotta bring back bullying, I think.
Oh, you know, listen. I do think in small doses, bullying is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Look, okay, this Chiefs team, they got bullied yesterday.
They did, and they're going to
learn
come
back better.
They're going to learn.
They're going to grow. Bullying is not all bad. Hashtag bring bullying back.
Yeah.
In doses.
Yep.
I'm not saying full time now. Come on, don't be crazy. But seriously,
someone's got to walk through the halls of Facebook and shove Mark Zuckerberg into a locker. Okay, it would be good for mankind. That's all.
The dorks need swirlies again.
They do.
That's all we're saying.
Golden showers. Swirlies? Well,
is that what they're called?
No, the swirlies you put them in the toilet and flush it, but then you pee on it.
Oh, okay.
It's
I'm not going to do all that, but the swirlies for sure.
Yeah,
I'll let you take the other part.
Swirlies for everyone.
All the dorks. Okay, so Jalen Hurts scrutiny should end, needs to end, and again, I think just the silence that we had around Jalen Hurts this season, in so many ways, is maybe disrespectful. You know, it's like you watch him do what he did, and it's like we should have been paying a little bit closer attention to this guy.
It's also perhaps a recipe to winning the Super Bowl is to stay under the radar and stay out of the spotlight of these narrative hunters.
Denver Nuggets 2023 championship.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let him talk about all these other teams. We'll just keep winning, and we'll be the last one standing.
It's a beautiful thing.
And I think that's like when you're a real good team.
You know what you got.
Exactly.
You don't need the noise.
You don't. And so the Lamar or Josh or Patrick or nobody's talking about Jalen, and all of a sudden he's the one holding the trophy at the end. And so it just goes to show you keep putting in the work.
Yep.
You trust your process, as lame as that sounds, but you trust your process.
Yep.
Trust the guys around you, and together you can do something special. And Jalen Hurts is, of course, the beneficiary of this awesome defensive performance, but it's a complementary sport. We talk about it all the time. And Jalen Hurts held up his end of the bargain.
He did.
And when he had to make a play, he did. With his legs, with his arm, incredible athlete, commanded the offense really well. We'll see what happens to that coaching staff. Some of them will go elsewhere and probably get dismantled, like that happens all the time. But I think we were all pretty happy to see the Chiefs take a big L.
Yeah, not mad about it. Okay, fourth quarter. Woo! Final stretch here, fourth quarter, and we are talking about the future of the NFL. Okay, we saw some fair officiating in this game. I think a lot of people that restored some faith maybe in the league, right?
Yep.
I think across the board, unless you were in Chiefs Kingdom, there was an overall feeling of, is this the rest of our lives? Is this how it's going to be the rest of our lives? You know, so saw some fair officiating there, saw what the Eagles are capable of. And I do think, are we maybe flirting with an Eagles? Can they
dynasty?
Go back? And is a dynasty on the horizon here?
I don't think so. Just because it's so competitive. I mean, it's really hard to do what the Chiefs did. The way the NFL is set up is to prevent that sort of thing with the salary cap, with the draft, which the worst teams get to draft first, and then free agency, and there's supposed to be parity. And there's some teams that are kind of on the come up in the NFC that are going to be nipping at their heels. The Washington Commanders, one of them there. The Detroit Lions, I don't think they're going to go away. I think they're going to continue to be good. The NFC West, wasn't great this year. The Rams were pretty darn good, but the Vikings are always going to be there to contend with. So I don't know if the Eagles are really going to have some dynasty here. But they're going to be in the mix because it's, their second Super Bowl in 3 years. Now they won it. Nick Sirianni's only been there for 4 years, and he's got 2 Super Bowl appearances.
Is he the most disrespected coach in the NFL?
Not anymore, probably.
But was he
Well,
going into this
I think
game?
it's a product of Phillies fans is like disenchantment and, you know, the fact that they lost that Super Bowl to the Chiefs before. And I think they got beat pretty bad a couple of years ago. And then it seemed as if he didn't have control over the team or whatever. They were 2-2 at one point this season. And then everyone had ideas as to why.
Right.
And
narratives
more narratives that end up getting broken in the end. You just got to kill the narrative. And they did.
They squashed them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool coach who's able to kind of navigate that and still get his team to play that well. Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, they had a beef, right? That was public. He was able to manage that, get these guys to play at their best.
We ran with that narrative. I mean, not us specifically, but
national media for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
AJ Brown reading the book on the sideline. You saw they did that in the game yesterday too as a joke. So they're able to kind of poke fun at it, not take it too seriously, which means Nick Sirianni didn't take it very seriously.
Correct.
Because if he was like, "Yo guys, the book on the sidelines can't do," he obviously didn't treat it like that. Nope. He was probably like, "Yeah, go ahead and read read. If you guys all want to read books, go ahead. As long as you go out on the field and perform." So he believes in his players. He's young enough to relate to them. They clearly respond to him. I think he'll get his flowers and more respect now.
I like that. Okay. Yeah. Do we think Travis Kelce's retiring?
Oh, Travis. We waited all this time to talk about Travis?
We did. We waited till the very end.
I mean, he's 35 years old.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, looks like he's getting like
a little slower.
And just a little low T. Like he's just getting drained, you know?
Which, I mean, it's expected. Yeah.
Like, but it's one of those things where once you start going to the other side of life and like doing all this other stuff, it does take away a little bit, you know. And I know he can talk about how the field is a sanctuary and it's his happy place, but still, man, you get 2 days off, you're not going home and relaxing on your couch.
You're firing up your podcast,
and then going on a quick trip with Taylor and going to this thing and going over here and have all these opportunities, and your phone's ringing off the hook, and people want to meet with you about this and want to do this deal and a Purdue, you know,
booked up.
Yes, and I think that becomes a distraction.
I agree.
And so, to what extent is Travis prepared to say to all those people who are ready to turn it, not now. I still have unfinished business. I'm going to keep playing football. So all that stuff I was entertaining, I'm going to ixnay it, nip it in the bud right now, and go back to being a football player. I don't know if he can do that.
I don't think so either. I think he's in too deep on the other stuff.
In too deep with Taylor. And now the pressure, and now he's a loser. And now so Taylor's like, "You're a loser now, buddy."
What if Taylor dumped
I didn't get with you so I could lose on the grandest stage in front of the whole fucking world and President Trump. I could get laughed at because of you. And then you go put that performance out there, Travis. I think there's some of that in the
maybe
in the Kelsey Swift household tonight.
Yeah, that might be a little angry.
Or she's comforting him and consoling him, and they're bathing in all of their money.
Yeah, you know, they do have a lot of money, so I'm sure they're doing just fine.
I've said this before, Liv. Money
doesn't buy happiness.
Does not heal the wounds of the ego or the present. It doesn't matter how big your bank account is. If you get humiliated like that,
and that was
the pain is real.
Definitely humiliation.
It was.
He
had 4 catches for 39 yards, pretty much non-existent the last 2 games. So I think he'll consider it, because if he walks away, he'll still probably be considered the best tight end ever, at least numbers wise,
behind Nate Jackson, of course.
Of course. Come on. He doesn't block.
Yeah.
And that was on display yesterday. He got beat pretty bad. So that's not part of his game, and people have accepted that's not part of his game.
His age got exposed is what I was going to say. Like,
yeah, we
know he's talented. We know he's got the, you know, the accolades, and he's going to be one of one when you talk about the game of football. But his nearing retirement got exposed.
Yeah.
Is how it felt.
Well, he was probably ready to call it quits after that win. So now he's going to obviously not announce it on the 50-yard line with Taylor Swift's ring, finger in his hand. It wasn't as climactic, but he's got some difficult things to think about, you know.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, these are humans that, you know, you've played the sport, you've played the game, you know that you make it your entire life. It is your entire life if you want to be successful at it. So it's probably a tough pill to swallow. Thankfully, his brother just went through this and can probably give him some advice and some support on it. But it is going to be a tough call. But I do think that it's not as far off as we think. So
35 is old for playing tackle football with the best
at a
athletes
high level,
on earth who are 10 years younger than you and healthy. So
and you got a long season because you're a playoff team that's gone all the way. Like it's a lot for sure.
17 games. They want to add an 18th game. Will that happen this offseason? Probably not, but relatively soon. So yeah, some tough decisions to be made in the Kelsey household.
I agree. Okay, 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. Nate's in the hot seat. Nate's starting to stress out. 2-minute warning.
Love it.
Beep, beep.
Okay.
Beep. Okay.
Yeah.
Your 2-minute warning topic of today. If you guys didn't know, we're doing a new segment on our show, the 2-minute warning, where Nate Jackson has 2 minutes to find a stance on the topic.
Yeah.
And convince you to be on board with his stance.
Team Nate.
That's the goal here. You are going to give your next year's Super Bowl prediction and convince the people why you are absolutely certain you know exactly which 2 teams are playing and you know who's winning the Super Bowl next year. Are you prepared?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. We are starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So where their team comes out of absolute nowhere and wins the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually pretty good. And so I think the 2 teams that are going to play in the Super Bowl next year are teams we're pretty familiar with in the playoffs this year.
Yep.
And those 2 teams, I'm not going to get to it right away because I got 1 minute and 41 seconds to go.
Yes,
okay.
You do.
So there were some teams this year that showed a lot of potential and a lot of promise and had some really good seasons. And then in the playoffs, had a big letdown. And I'm not talking about the Bills. I don't think the Bills are going to make it there. I think the Bills are going to be perpetual in letdown mode. And I also think that the Kansas City Chiefs, who just got annihilated on the largest stage in the world, are not going to make it to the Super Bowl next year either. I think it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC. I think they're going to figure it out. Look, all the people calling for the, after Mark Andrews had that mistake. Oh, yeah, trade Mark Andrews, get rid of him. No, that's not how they operate. They're going to rally around him. They love him. He's their brother. They believe in him. They rallied around him in the aftermath, and they're going to get stronger because of it. I think they sort of outplayed the Bills, or they can walk away from that game thinking we're the better team. We had 3 turnovers. They had 0. We lost. We shot ourselves in the foot. I think the Ravens are going to be back there next year. In the NFC, I don't think the Eagles are going to make it. I think they're going to be another good team. But it's going to be, I think, the Lions are going to respond and make it to the Super Bowl. They were decimated by injury this year.
They were.
They were humiliated at home.
They were.
And now they have the opportunity to make that right. Obviously, injury bugs are one thing that you can't predict or prepare for. But if they were able to stay healthier, I think they would have been in a much better position there. And they were also hosting an NFC Championship game, or not NFC Championship game, hosting a game against, at home, and they got ahead of themselves. I think they overlooked the Commanders. They'll never do that again. I think the Detroit Lions are continuing to ascend. The Eagles will be right there. But I see the Lions and the Ravens.
And who wins?
And I think it's going to be the Ravens. Lamar Jackson will hoist that trophy.
I would love it. Okay. You convinced me.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Cool.
You did.
Cool.
You totally convinced me. I think a lot of people thought that would be the Super Bowl matchup this year.
Yeah.
That's the way it was trending. The way that Lamar Jackson was playing at an MVP, should have won MVP season. And the Lions also playing at an exceptionally high level. It looked like the Lions for the majority of the season were unstoppable.
Yeah.
And then, of course, to your point, injury bug kind of crawls in there. Not a whole lot you can do about that. They still were performing at a high level with injuries.
Yeah.
So imagine what we're going to get from them when they get some of those guys back and healthy and have that taste of blood in their mouth, because they got smacked around when nobody was expecting it.
Yeah.
So I think there is an aspect. We'll end with this. It sounds like there is an aspect as grown men that when you get embarrassed, that's maybe the ticket to motivating you to excel. To
failure is such a better teacher than success. Losing, you learn a lot more from your losses in life than you do from your wins. You win something, you walk away like, yeah, I'm great. You lose, you walk away like, no, I need to get better. And where can I get better? Now, the best coaches allow you to have those moments even in victories. And Sean Payton's talked about that a lot. Like, these coaches know how to, even in a big win, press those couple things you didn't do well for you to figure those out. But on the grandest stage, to have that happen, you really have to look yourself in the mirror and go back. And the Lions are a relatively young team too. Whereas the Chiefs, they got some guys that might be moving on. And so they're in different boats, but I think they'll both learn from it.
Love it. Okay, well, this has been another phenomenal episode of Guerrilla Sports Off Field. I'm Liv Moods. That's Nate Jackson. And this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. You can head to trustedamerican.com to see if they can get you a better interest rate, lower your monthly payments, and basically just help you save some money. That's what they're there for. So shout out to our friends over at Trusted American. Thank you guys for tuning in to our Super Bowl reaction show. And we'll be back Thursday. I will not be here, but Nate will be here.
Yeah, we're going to do a Broncos season review show.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're going to talk all things Broncos as well as maybe some Broncos predictions for next season. And I'll be tuning into that episode so I can place some futures bets. You guys know I love to jump to the sports book and place all my bets. So appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to our Kansas City Chief, Andy, for running the show.
Thanks, Andy.
Despite the loss yesterday, she's a good sport.
You're a true
We
pro.
appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you very, very soon.